And I will call this meeting to order at 7:31 p.m. and dismissal. This meeting is being recorded message. Okay, this is a work session. We're supposed to have vigorous and thorough discussions of all the items so we can go think about it for a week and come back and vote on them next week. And we have a long agenda. So this is a less formal meeting than many. Let's go ahead and dive in. First of all, we need to approve the agenda. Are there any changes the council would like to see to the agenda? And do any council members have conflicts of interest for the agenda? I'm having to readjust the size of the window so I can get my version of the agenda up back on screen. And Director Barnes expands it to fill the whole screen that covers up my copy. Okay. I don't see any changes or amendments or conflicts of interest. So let me mark that as being done. And let's go ahead and move on to the presentations. And the first presentation is the swearing in of the Board of Code Appeals. And are all members of the Board of Code Appeals in attendance? Let me go down the list. Is Ryan here? Ryan McAllister?
Hi, Mayor. Yes, I'm here.
There you are. Didn't see your name on the list. And David Sutton is here. And the third person, having trouble scrolling here. Are there only two? Sarah Billington, that's what I thought. Scroll right past her. Sarah is here.
Present.
Very good. Okay. So please raise your hands and prepare to take the oath of office and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Sarah Billington,
Brian McAllister.
Do swear or affirm
Do swear
or affirm
that I will diligently and honestly
that I
that I
will
will diligently and honestly
administer the affairs of the Board of Code Appeals
administer the affairs of the Board of Code Appeals
for the town of Riverdale Park
for the town of Riverdale Park
in accordance with Chapter 56 of the Riverdale Park Town Code.
in accordance with Chapter 56 of the Riverdale Park Town Code.
And that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland
And that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland.
and support the Constitution and laws thereof.
and
Support the Constitution and laws thereof.
And that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
and
And that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office
execute the office
of Sarah, you will say chair, and the others will say member of the Board of Code Appeals
of a member
of
of
the
Board of
chair
Appeals
of Board of Code Appeals. Board of Code Appeals.
for the town of Riverdale Park,
for the
For the town of Riverdale Park,
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
Congratulations, you are sworn in. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this for us. And Director Barnes, will we circulate versions of these documents around so everyone can sign?
Absolutely, I'll take care of that.
Okay, very good. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Very much appreciate that.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And so now we are going to do similar for the Board of Education. Excuse me, elections. BOE stands for Board of Education most of the time, but here it's Board of Elections.
Councilmember Lingua has his hand up.
Yes, Councilmember Lingua.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just as a point of clarification, could you please read the names of those who have just been sworn in for the board, for the appeals board?
I will do so. It's going to take a second. My computer is running a little bit slow tonight for some reason. So let me get that document back open. Ryan McAllister, Laura Katz, Sarah Billington, and David Sutton is an alternate. Are you satisfied, Councilmember?
Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, given the, hold on, let me read through this for just a second. So I'm going to trust that everybody knows their membership status, which is we have a chair, or excuse me, a chief election judge, a deputy chief election judge. So chief election judge is Sarah Zolad, deputy chief election judge is Kate Kelly, and everyone else is simply a member. So when I say state your office, then please state the appropriate office. So let's go. Please raise your hand and prepare to take the oath of office. I state your name.
I, Michael.
Patty Boyd,
Do swear or affirm
do swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution and laws thereof.
and support the Constitution and laws thereof.
And that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
And that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of, state your office,
execute the office of member
Election
election judge
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
Congratulations, you are sworn in. Again, thank you so much for agreeing to help us out with this very important work and for your time and energy and for being there for 14 hours when the day of election actually happens. 15 hours, it's a long day. I've been there myself. So thank you again, and Director Barnes will circulate the paperwork, and I will have a signing party at some point, and we'll all have certificates available. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
But will you also have cake?
Maybe we can get some cupcakes and deliver them with the certificates. Okay, next proclamation is for me to read. And it is with great joy that I read this proclamation. Is my audio okay, by the way?
What'd you say? Kidding.
Funny guy, funny guy. Okay. Proclamation. Whereas Manifest Bread is a new business in the town of Riverdale Park, offering delicious handcrafted breads and pastries to our community. And whereas Manifest Bread was founded in 2018 out of a passion for quality home handmade products from start to finish. And whereas the town of Riverdale Park celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And whereas Manifest Bread will be a valuable addition to our community, providing jobs and economic growth, and adding to the diversity and vibrancy of our local food scene. And whereas the town of Riverdale Park is honored to welcome Manifest Bread to Riverdale Park, and we applaud its investment in our community, which provides new jobs. Now, therefore, I, Alan K. Thompson, Mayor of the town of Riverdale Park, do hereby thank and recognize Manifest Bread Bakery for their investment in our community and congratulate them on the grand opening of their new establishment. And I will happily sign this, and maybe I'll hand deliver this myself so I have an excuse to buy some bread while I'm there. So congratulations to Manifest Bread for moving in. I was glad to be there for the ribbon cutting, and I'm glad to have you in town. Thank you so much. Okay, that's all the proclamations and swearing-ins. So we are to presentation number 4, from programs to strategy, investing in east of the river neighborhoods.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council and the community. I'll be giving a little bit of an intro. Ryan's going to share some information, and so is Ms. Barnes. And this is the beginning of a conversation that, frankly, I think we started in the fall of 2019. And then in February of 2020, I convened representatives from all of our departments to talk about how we can improve, how we can do things different, how we can make a more visible and impactful change in our neighborhoods that we talk about, I talk about in terms of being east of the river. And Ryan's going to define the geographic area that we're seeking to address here in a few moments. But I just wanted to chat and say that a lot of things have been done, and you'll hear about some of those things tonight. And we plan on returning for at least the next 2 work sessions to talk about other elements of moving from programs to strategy. But I wanted to first talk about what that means to the staff team. So oftentimes in government work, you stand up programs. Something happens and you say, well, we need to support this, or we need to react to that. And how do we do that to support our residents and our businesses? And with the mayor and council's leadership, we did just that in March of 2020 when COVID hit, and we stood up things like the Farmers Market Dollars program and a variety of other programs that were both funded locally and funded federally. And there's lots of nonprofit partners that have been doing good work in this area as well. And so it's important to recognize that good things have been happening. But how do we take these programs and look at the interconnective aspect of the programs? And how do we improve communication and engagement and really find out what the residents would like to see? As you'll hear shortly, our communication outreach, we have some barriers. We've reported this to the mayor and council before, and we're not reaching as thoroughly as we would like residents, particularly in these neighborhoods. And so we have to discover how we're going to bring down those barriers, how we're going to help people plug into programs, how we're going to facilitate for residents to define what it is that they would like to see in their community and in their particular part of town. And so there's many different facets to this in moving from programs to strategy. And there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. We have residents, and the mayor has spoken about this, these situations we have where people will go without heat or hot water. They will be severely impacted in one way or another in their home or in their neighborhood. And they won't call us. I met with representatives along with Director Shelton and Chief Whitson today, met with representatives from CASA and talked about that dynamic in terms of being able to more fully reach a large portion of our town residents. So this is the first conversation since 2019. And can you go to the next slide, whoever's controlling the screen? And so our working title is just investing east of the river neighborhoods, from programs to strategy. And the town, and Director Shelton's going to talk about this some, has been investing in making good inroads. But I think I know we've reached a point where we have to look at this more strategically and look at the town's role and what it is that the town can facilitate and the town can accomplish, and how we can more effectively also work through our faith-based and our nonprofit partners and other government partners as well. And so with that, I'm going to ask Director Shelton to describe the area and provide some information so we know what neighborhoods we're talking about.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. The area that we have, that staff has been in-house calling the east of the river is this area shown here in yellow. It is along Kenilworth Avenue, between the southeast edge of town, but also extending up to River Road, everywhere between the Anacostia River and in the town boundary in that area. Would you like me to continue, John, on the next slide as well?
Well, I didn't know if you had some demographic information you wanted to share.
Not at this time.
Okay, so if you go to the next slide then. And so I've already called out who our partners would be, but it's more than the town. But I and the staff team, the staff leadership team, believe that the town needs to lead the coordination of these efforts. And there's a lot that we've done, but as I plan on having in the proposed budget, there's more that the staff believe that the town can do to try to create, again, visible and impactful change. Next slide, Ryan. So key components of a strategy, starting with a strong foundation. And we find that in the town's vision and commitment statements, and most notably in the statement for housing and neighborhoods. What is it that's our vision? What should a neighborhood be like? What should it feel like? So we're turning there, as well as the other vision and commitment statements. And then a key component's coordination, how things will come together. Engagement, outreach, communication, that's an area that Director Barnes will speak about tonight in greater detail, as well as our existing programs and new programming. Director Shelton will talk about that, and then he will talk about some of the community projects as well. The future meetings, end of February, end of March, will be covering the financing and financial incentives, staffing, And I don't want to get too far out there, but we are putting together a proposal to bring on 2 part-time staff to act as ambassadors. I believe Ms. Barnes is going to speak more on that here shortly. And then regulation and new legislation. Later on the agenda tonight, there's some legislation that we are referring to as tenant protection legislation as it relates to amendments to Chapter 55, the rental licensing ordinance. And then community safety, and that's both the police department and neighborhood services. The Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative. We have 600 students approximately that walk from this area to Riverdale Elementary School. And then our partnerships and how we can nurture and further grow those partnerships. And then private investment. And that's a challenge. Even with the purple line, it's a challenge because, as I understand it, the town wants to protect affordability. And we also have a sector plan that says that private investment in portions of these neighborhoods should be discouraged. And so we're up against that. So there's lots of challenges, but there's lots of opportunities. And I'm glad that we're able to start anew this conversation this evening. And with that, I would ask that Ryan move to the next slide. Yes, and that's the 4 areas that we're going to talk about. And so I believe Ms. Barnes is up next.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to talk about one of my favorite things, which is engagement, communication, and outreach with the community. I think as we're all aware, there are some tools that we have been commonly using to communicate with all of our residents about our programs and our services. So we're currently utilizing our well-established communication platforms, such as our website, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We use our town crier, which is our monthly newsletter. We also utilize our status and information report, print media, so flyers, brochures, handouts. We have our message boards in each of the communities. We have an electronic sign, we have the cable channel, we have town announce, we have community walks, and we're still not getting the level of engagement, and we're not getting the information out to all of our residents. 55% of our residents are Spanish speakers, and we need to work really hard to get the information out to that piece of our community. Right now, we are presenting information in both English and Spanish. So you'll see a lot of our social media postings are in English and in Spanish. We offer the status and information report in both languages. Almost all of our flyers are in English and in Spanish. And for the first time in my 10 years with the town, the February town crier will have a QR code to a version that's completely in Spanish. So we have made some very important strides, but we still need to make some changes to the way that we engage with our residents, the way that we communicate with our residents, and the way that we conduct our outreach for all of our programs. So some of the next steps we have moving forward, one is a capstone project that I'm personally working on through the University of Baltimore. And the topic that I chose was communicating with Spanish-speaking residents. So the goal is to simply understand how to better communicate with our residents, how to better engage with our residents. And part of that will be conducting a needs assessment to understand and identify the gaps in our current communication efforts and our outreach efforts. What's not working? Where are we not connecting? So those are some things that we're going to be looking at and hopefully improving upon. John mentioned a little bit earlier about our relationships. So our community stakeholders, who are they? We know who some of them are. We have relationships with them currently, but we need to leverage those relationships and develop new relationships. And some of those will be nonprofit entities, maybe with the faith-based community, and there may be stakeholders out there that we're not as familiar with, that we need to really kind of mobilize and energize and really reach out into the community to make those important connections. And we talked a little bit, this has been probably a year ago, about the Community Ambassador Program. So there's several parts to this program, but the goal is to reach our residents where they are through communication tools that are already there. So relationships that are already established. Maybe there's somebody in the community who is speaking with our residents, and we want to make sure that we partner with them. We talked about bringing in hiring 2 community ambassadors to welcome folks, to keep the take a look at what's in need in the neighborhood, meet those needs that we may not necessarily be aware of right now. So there are 2 parts to that program, but the goal is the direct communication with our residents, and that's not always happening through the platforms that we have currently. So word of mouth is an incredibly important tool, and we're going to capitalize on that by launching and relaunching this Community Ambassador Program. And then one of the more exciting things is, as the pandemic changes and we're able to hold some community events, we will be holding outdoor, safe, socially distanced events and conducting some different placemaking activities. So look forward to those things this summer. We will be doing, of course, our community walks and getting out into the community, but we will be increasing those types of events and really incorporating some of the placemaking components to make sure that our residents know that we're here, that we care, and that we're able to hear from them and understand what they need. So I think with that, I'll pass the mic to Ryan, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I'd like to change the slide here. There we go. I'd like to take a moment to talk about the town programs that residents in this area are able to apply for. So starting off with the accessory structure grant, so this grant program is for residents in town who are making an improvement to their accessory structures at their property. This area in town in particular has a lot of multifamily properties, and therefore there's a lot of residents who are not able to participate in this program, and that's one of the struggles that we reach with this program in particular. But there are indeed still some single family homes that have been able to participate in this program a little bit north of East West Highway for the most part. I'm in the Quintana Casada Street area. The second program I'd like to speak about is the Emergency Repair Grant Program. We have had a significant number of applications from this area for our Emergency Repair Grant Program, which is a matching grant to help residents who are facing an emergency and need to make an urgent repair on their property. The Neighborhood Safety Grant is specifically for this area. It's actually in the eligibility requirements that it must be east of the Anacostia River and south of East West Highway, where eligible properties in this area are able to receive a matching grant for improved lighting or improved cameras and other items that would usually fall under CPTED or crime prevention through environmental design. And we have had some applications. In fact, I think all of our applications are, yes, we have had some applications for 2 apartment buildings over in this area to install new lighting and new camera systems over there. We also have the flood prevention grant, the new flood prevention grant, where a lot of residents in this area are affected by the flooding of the Anacostia River being so close and being in the flood zone. And so this grant program should be able to assist many more residents living over in that area. And while for the most part, the flood prevention grant assists those in single family homes, we are going to speak a little bit later about legislation that would help also make multifamily property owners aware of this program as well, so that they are able to make some flood prevention efforts on their properties as well. I'm sure everybody's very familiar with the farmers market dollars. I won't drone on too much about that, but a significant portion of the participants of that program are living in this area that I had shown in the slide earlier. And lastly, I'll speak about the rental and mortgage assistance program, which is the program that assists residents or tenants with and other property owners with past due rental, mortgage, and utilities. And I believe we've provided $200,000 to date for rental and mortgage assistance so far, and it has all been to properties, to applicants who lived in this area east of the river. There are additional funds, and we hope to assist more residents who are still suffering from the pandemic, and because of that are behind in their rent or mortgage or utilities. I'd also like to speak a little bit about the town programs that the town has for businesses. First, we have the Celebrating Business Initiative, which is an initiative for new businesses opening, as well as those celebrating an anniversary, specifically anniversaries within 5-year increments. So if it's their 5th year, 10th year, 15th year anniversary, that the town will help promote the significant anniversary or the significant grand opening for the business. We have had discussions with a few business owners over in that area about participating in this grant program. And so we're excited to see that soon. The Business Growth Grant, we have had applications from businesses over there. This is for more of a significant renovation to a business property. The Commercial Appearance Grant Program is the formerly named the Business Improvement Grant Program, is more of a facade and an appearance focused a grant program for businesses that businesses in this area could apply for. There's the Small Business Assistance Grant, which is to help businesses who are also behind on their utilities and their lease payments. We have the Commercial Emergency Repair Grant, which also operates very similarly to the Residential Emergency Repair Grant. And lastly, we have the Flood Prevention and Damage Mitigation program, which also assists just commercial businesses and retail businesses and things of that nature with preventing future flood damage and making sure that they're able to stay open and not close or have any unexpected payments to cover emergencies. So the next steps for these town programs is a more targeted outreach of current programs. We have staff members who are going to speak with owners directly about all of the programs and really target the programs towards businesses based on where they're geographically located. We're also going to evaluate current programs to see if there are any unmet needs. So during this targeted outreach to the business owners and to the residents, we're going to speak with both business owners and residents about their current struggles and see if there's anything that they would suggest or would prefer to be changed about our programs. And if they have suggestions that we believe should be included, then we will bring those proposed amendments back to the mayor and council for you all to decide. And if there are just entirely new programs, we will also propose those new programs to assist businesses and residents over in this area east of the river. I'd also like to take a little time to talk about the town projects occurring in this area. The first being welcome signage. Currently, the town has signs. There's a little white pole with the town. I believe it's the Riversdale Mansion on the welcome signage, and there's a few throughout the borders of town. The town staff is currently working on CIP project, which would create monument signs in a few areas along the town's border. 2 of those areas are in this geographical boundary, both on Kenilworth Avenue. the bus stop improvements CIP project has been seeking to install shelters at, I believe it's up to 6. We have enough funding for 6 bus stops in town in that geographical area. Some of the hiccups we're running into is that the sidewalk may be too thin in places, and it butts physical limitations of property boundaries and existing fences. But we're working to get that done quickly and soon, and I expect to see some new bus shelters installed within the next 6 months. The 54th Place Pocket Park is an effort to install a pocket park on 54th Place, which is, I believe, the next road just to the east of 54th Avenue. And that's it's currently a street or an alley owned by the town. The neighborhood safety camera system is the new police camera system that will install cameras throughout town, but I believe there's also a few over in this area that we're describing and speaking about tonight. There's streetlight improvements, which is the installation of additional streetlights along 54th Avenue. This program uses community development block grant program funds to help install this new lighting along 54th Avenue. There's also a CIP project for updating and purchasing new street furniture, including benches and things of that nature, as well as the waste receptacles. And obviously some of those will be installed over in this area as well. There's another CDBG funded project on 54th Avenue, and this is a little bit further south on 54th Avenue, but that's the sidewalk improvements. This actually includes a little bit of Spring Lane, which is at the very southern edge of 54th Avenue. And this is going to be a sidewalk that continues where the sidewalk ends currently, about halfway along Spring Lane, and will continue west, and then as the Spring Lane turns north along that road to connect it to 54th Avenue. And lastly, there's a CIP project for street and sidewalk improvements, which would include improving the streets and sidewalks and curb improvements in this area as well. Pardon me. The next steps for town projects are to evaluate our current properties and our infrastructure, and to recommend projects that would have a positive impact in our fiscal year 24 budget. And we're also going to seek to secure funding to establish additional projects to that as well. Yes. Excuse me.
Sorry, I was muted. So Ryan, thanks for going through that, and Director Barnes the same. As we can all see, the town is doing a lot. And so the town is currently investing in this area, and but a lot more needs to occur. And so the part of this strategy, looking at the interconnectedness of the programs and investments and the changes, and involving the residents and our partners, this is going to be a multi-year effort to bring about sustained, visible, and impactful change that can have a positive effect on the daily lives of our residents. And at the next work session, we will have demographic information, because a large portion of the town's population resides in this small geographic area. And so with that, well, and Brian has the presentation schedule that we propose to come back on at the end of February and the end of March to talk about these other aspects of a strategy. And we anticipate community meetings and engagement there, meetings with our partners, and obviously more meetings with the mayor and council. So can you go back one slide, Ryan? And with that, Mr. Mayor, we're here to listen to any initial comments or concerns or questions.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Looks like Councilmember Lingua has his hand up first, so go ahead, Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, my question to staff is there going to be a, being that you're talking about community stakeholders and you're looking at the Kenilworth Avenue area, is staff planning to brief the folks over at CCAR CDC?
Absolutely, sir. And we wanted to come here tonight first, as is our practice, to talk with the mayor and council. And but if there's general support for us spending staff resources and putting this together, then we would reach out to the partners, because the partners play a very important role. And frankly, I'll go so far as to say that they've been carrying a large portion of the load. And what staff are suggesting is there's more that we can do, and to help lighten that load, and to work in concert with the various partners. So that's a longer answer, but the short answer is absolutely, sir.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you very much. I would suggest it. They've been involved with this area for quite some time now, and I think they could. I think their input would be of benefit to the town.
And the staff can concur for what that's worth, sir.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Councilmember Smith.
All right, just lower my hand there. Thank you to staff for that presentation. Sounds like we're going to be doing some great and much needed work and outreach to the eastern portion of our town. I had a question about the figure 55% Spanish speakers. Could we clarify that? Is that 55% first language Spanish?
So that's based on some census data that so 55% of our population, I believe it is, speaks Spanish at home. That's their language that's spoken at home. And so another interesting thing, I could talk about this for a while, so please bear with me, but
please do.
We do have very specific areas of the world where we're seeing most of our residents that are joining us from. So there are some cultural aspects that we should be considering in our outreach component. And so that's part of the Capstone Project, is really digging in to understand those aspects of our community to better meet the needs and better conduct this outreach and engage our residents.
And is that, Ms. Barnes, that's your Capstone Project?
It is. I'm working through a project with the Thank you so much. I'm working through a project with the University of Baltimore, the Certified Public Manager Program. So I'm really excited about it.
Outstanding. Thank you. And I think this is all great stuff, and we need to be doing more. So I hope this isn't taken as critical, but you know, it strikes me that our town crier, the movement we're talking about here, is putting, you know where I'm going, right? Don't you? The QR code on the town crier to get it in the language that is spoken at home for the majority of our citizens. And I'm wondering if there's been any thought given to, and I know it would be production costs and whatnot, but doing the print version of the crier in Spanish. And I know there's lots of research about communication with native Spanish speakers, that they tend to use mobile more than internet or other, like desktop, as opposed to other media. But I'm just wondering if we've given any thought to that.
Absolutely, Councilman Smith. I mean, this is exactly the focus and why we're focusing on this topic. So what we're hoping to collect is some data with the QR code. So we will see how frequently that's accessed. But I do agree with you. Now that we're able to get the crier into Spanish, which was a Herculean effort just to begin with timing and printing and all that good stuff. This is not where it will stop. There will be a lot more that you will see translated into Spanish, and you'll likely see some of that in the budget in fiscal year 2024. But I do agree. We haven't gotten there quite yet, but that's someplace that I think we will go once we have some more data to back that up.
Outstanding. Thank you for that. Glad to see that we are moving in that direction. And this sounds like a really great first step. Thanks to everybody who worked on that. The last thing that I had a question about, Mr. Town Manager, you mentioned that we have regulations, or I can't remember where you said it said this, but there are certain areas that we actually discourage private investment east of the river.
It's not the town, sir.
Okay.
So the MNCPPC, their planning side of their house produced what's known as the East Riverdale Beacon Heights Sector Plan. And that planned area includes much of the area that we're talking about here this evening. And I forget which page it's on, but there's a map that shows that area that also shows the floodplains. And now, depending on which floodplain you go by, if it's the 1989 study area or the FEMA floodplain for the 100-year floods. But the boundaries are basically the same. They're off 20 feet here or 30 feet there. But the county refers to, MNCPPC refers to those areas as regulated areas. And so on their maps, they call out and they say, discourage private investment. But then in another little balloon, if you will, call out on the same map, they say maintain affordable housing. As a former affordable housing person, I find it odd that you can discourage private investment and maintain affordable housing. And that's something that the town had called out when that plan was under consideration. And so that's what it is. It's not that the town would discourage it, sir. It's that it's actually written into a planning document.
Understood. So it's one of the rare occasions when park and planning guidance is unclear or contradictory.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. That's all the questions I have on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Councilmember Foe, you are next.
Yes, I would just reiterate a lot of the things that the previous councilman had said. This is very exciting stuff. I love to hear projects that are occurring east of the river. It's been an area that has needed attention, is getting attention, is going to be developed hopefully for the improvement of the community by the time the Purple Line is completed, and hopefully in 2026. I'm excited to see the town take steps into that. Director Barnes, I'm incredibly excited about your capstone project. That is remarkable news to hear. And I feel like prior work with CCAR, with faith-based organizations in the community, with Riverdale Elementary, I feel like our staff has already done a lot of that work necessary to get the community to recognize that we're trying to engage them more. So I feel like we're putting the effort there, and with continued focus, we're bound to see success. But I just wanted to say this is really exciting stuff, to be able to look at all parts of our community and really direct investment in those spaces where it is most needed. I couldn't more wholeheartedly support this initiative. So thank you.
And thank you, sir.
So it looks like we have a member of the public ready to comment. Ms. Billington, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, staff. I appreciated seeing the boundary zone in the initial slide. I think the capital improvement projects are pretty exciting. I think what might be helpful for visually communicating those and getting effective feedback might be geolocating the types of capital projects also within that map zone area, just so that it's very abundantly clear where the target areas are for some of those capital improvement projects, just for, I think, general awareness, but also to solicit good feedback from stakeholders and partners.
We will certainly work to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Billington. Any other council or public comments? Seeing none, I'll just say that I join the other members of the council in thanking the staff for this effort. It looks like a great set of programs. I will mention that the Spanish language translation of the town crier was a very pleasant surprise to me. You guys snuck that up. I've been asking about this for years, and you managed to sneak it past me. I hadn't asked the town manager, I think, in several months, and so that's why I got caught. But that's great news, and I at least will be downloading the Spanish language version from the QR code just to read it myself. I'll be very interested. I presume that version will also be, or that the QR code will be, links to that version will be pushed out on social media and through the website and everywhere else that we usually communicate. That just makes sense, right?
Absolutely, we're excited.
Okay, very good. I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I'm very pleased at that particular bit of news. So thank you all. Is there any additional discussion on the from programs to strategy presentation? Questions, comments? Ms. Billington, you still have your hand up. I think that's just left over from previously, but it is
Yes, sorry, legacy hand. I'll take it down.
there. No problem. No problem. Okay, no other comments, then I will move on to my report. We have a long agenda tonight, so I'm going to try to be fairly short in my report. Just a reminder to members of the council, we are in the midst of the town manager performance review. He finished up his review date, it's called anniversary date, on the 20th of January. And so we are in the time where we're reviewing him, and I'm supposed to get your review forms back by midnight next Monday. So please work on those and try to get them back to me as quickly as possible. One of the other items under that is that we are supposed to provide the town manager with some performance goals for next year. These are particular projects that we would like to see him focus his efforts on. And so please be thinking about that, and feel free to reach out to the town manager if you have some ideas to see how those might be best phrased. And we will not immediately establish those, but sometime during the month of February, we will need to get moving on those and try to have them in place beginning of March. Another administrative item, there's a Legacy MUTC meeting on Wednesday night. The main topic is the lofts. They will be presenting the newest iteration of their design for the town center development. Hope to see people there to see what's presented. Usual section of my report on COVID. There's actually a lot of encouraging news coming out right now. The case rate is heading down. Case rates for both COVID, flu, RSV, everything is heading down. Wastewater surveillance, which is sort of the most reliable data, is heading down. There are some regions of the country, I believe that New York is not heading down as fast as other places, but it's looking better, and we can hope that the holiday-driven infections are making their way through, and we will see lower rates as the spring progresses. There's an interesting new report on long COVID out of the Kaiser Family Foundation. I saw it today. I think it might be a few weeks old. And a couple of interesting stats from there. One is that 11% of those who had COVID are currently reporting long COVID symptoms. And so that's some previous numbers had been more around 20% had had long COVID, but that's how many are currently reporting them. And that is roughly 6% of the entire US population that is currently suffering from long COVID. And a quarter of those, so 1.5%, give or take a bit, have a significant impact to their life, that it's not just that they have some sore muscles, that they have a little trouble breathing, it's that they have trouble doing the usual activities of life. And that's an enormous number of people. That's millions and millions of people who are suffering in that way. And the sort of summary of the report is that while the rates of long COVID are going down, that is mostly driven by the fact that we haven't had a major wave since the Omicron wave of about a year ago, and that the time scale for long COVID symptoms to dissipate is around a year. And so, as I always say, try to not catch it, because it would be very unpleasant to be sick for an entire year. And I think all of us would like to avoid that. Okay. Last and most definitely not least, I think everyone saw the news at the end of last week that the video footage from another police encounter with a Black man happened. Tyree Nichols was killed on January 7th in an encounter with police. And a lot of video footage was released. A lot of it was stitched together. I haven't actually watched the video myself and do not at this time plan to. I did read a very interesting analysis done by the New York Times, in which they said that during the encounter, the police issued 71 separate instructions to Mr. Nichols, and many of these instructions were contradictory, or they were impossible for Mr. Nichols to comply, and he was punished for each one with which he did not comply. One example was that two officers each had one arm in their hand and his hands behind his back, and a third officer came up and instructed him to present his hands to the officer, which he could not do because they were being held behind his back by two other officers. And I believe, and I hope that our police are better than this, that this is not something that would happen in the town of Riverdale Park. I think we've communicated that this is not the sort of behavior we want to see. But as always, when there is an incident like this, then we have to take a hard look and see if we're doing enough, see if there's more that we can do to prevent this sort of thing from happening in Riverdale Park. I have a few thoughts and ideas. I'm going to discuss them with members of the council and with staff on things that I think will not impact our police officers, will not seriously stop law enforcement, seriously impede law enforcement, but may take down the chances. I'm interested in hearing from members of the council, from members of the public, ideas that you have, and members of the police department, for that matter. By the structure of our government, you'll need to go through town staff, but please do, if you have ideas, anyone who has ideas, please share them. And with that, I will say, I'll conclude my report. The next item on our agenda is the town manager's report. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The only thing that I had planned on speaking on tonight was what you just concluded with the murder of Tyree Nichols. And I will add that on behalf of the staff team, and especially the police department, our prayers are with the Nichols family. I did watch the video, and as the mayor and council know, I've worked in law enforcement. I remember when Rodney King incident occurred. When I watched this video, I can only think of one word that appropriately describes it. It's evil. The callous disregard for another human being is simply evil. And I do know that our police officers would join me in that statement and condemning this. And Chief Gwixons and we will talk more on this. And I know she's already had conversations with some of her staff. And if anyone has any thoughts on not just this incident, but how we can ensure that the town's police department never, ever has such an incident, then we will be asking for their thoughts on this. And yes, it's just pure evil, sir. So with that, I have no additional comments this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. That brings us on the agenda to council, committee, and ward reports. Starting with Ward 1, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you earlier this evening for your reading of the proclamation on Ward 1 institution. I think it's safe to say at this point, manifest bread. I do want to point out, in addition to bread and pastries, they also have delicious coffee, which I've had most mornings since they've opened up. So I'm sure that was not a slight to the coffee, leaving it out of the proclamation there. It is absolutely delicious, and I hope everyone will frequent Manifest Bread. Similarly, we've got a burgeoning food scene here in Ward 1 as Mr. Bake, which is a cupcake shop in Le Fantôme in Riverdale Park Station, has been nominated for a James Beard Award. For those who don't know about the James Beard Award, it is essentially like the Oscars of cuisine. It's like really impressive to have that in our community. So congratulations to Kareem Queeman, the proprietor and the chef at Mr. Bake, on his nomination, and let's hope that he is able to bring that James Beard Award back here to Riverdale Park and Ward 1. Also want to note that as of about an hour and a half ago, we now have a new state senator here in our community in Riverdale Park and the surrounding area. Former delegate Alonzo Washington, who I had a good conversation with during the inauguration festivities about what we can look forward to in our community and his support for Riverdale Park. He is our new senator. As folks know, Senator Pinsky was nominated or given or assigned a position in the new administration of our new governor, Wes Moore. So very exciting stuff happening all around. Riverdale Park Station, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the, or Mr. Town Manager, the communications and correspondence we've exchanged with residents on the improving the safety over at RPS. And as is tradition, I'll ask for a update on the road transfer as soon as you can get it to me, so that we can make sure that the residents there are informed about when we can look towards taking over those roads and providing services and making that community safer. In response to the murder of Mr. Nichols by police in Memphis, I'm struck by the fact that not only were there officers that beat him to death, there were other officers and other first responders that arrived on scene and stood by and refused to render aid as he, fought for his life. I don't know if that's the right term. As he died, I guess. I think a lot of times when we talk about this issue, we get wrapped up in whether individual officers are doing the right thing, whether our town officers are doing the right thing. And in my experience, our officers are courteous and professional, and I don't have any issues with them. I think they do a great job. I also think largely the institution of policing is broken. The officers in question were all college educated, all had bachelor's degrees. They were all extensively trained in use of force and de-escalation and all the other programs that every time this happens, we say the answer is to give police more money and give police more training. There's no empirical evidence that works, that it reduces violence against the community from officers of the state. I don't know the answer. I know what we have been doing isn't working. And I know this is something that I think about literally every day as I send a black son out into the world. You know, it literally makes me nervous when I see the blue lights flashing outside of his school, just directing traffic, because I don't know what's going to happen when he goes in that building, when he's out of my sight. I think we need to think of what we can do as a community to overall reduce interactions with citizens among our police, and take a hard look at the role in our community, and be involved with our local, state, federal, legislative officials in trying to find solutions, because it doesn't seem like this is a problem that's going away. We keep trying things that don't work, and we need to find the things that do work. And that's all I have for my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Thank you for your words on the Tyree Nichols murder. Also, just to harken a bit back into your report, you missed one other food event for Ward 1, and that was 250 Texas made it onto the top 100 restaurants in the Washingtonian.
Oh, yes. I thought that was before I thought we'd had a meeting since then, but thank you for the correction.
Catalyst hot dogs too, Councilmember Smith. Where's the love for Cece's, Riverdale Park's only bodega? I mean, I have spoken to this bodega. We needed key ingredients the other day, and instead of running up to Whole Foods or anything, we just run to Cece's, and they always have what we have.
I've complimented in this forum Cece's many times. It is one of my favorite institutions in our town.
I love it.
Establishments here. Like, if you have not been there, check it out. Like, it is like, I have the Yes Organic Market closer to my house than Cece's is, and I go to Cece's every time. They're a great place.
Better produce.
Like produce, like things like that's like more than you can get at a 7-Eleven, but you don't quite want to go to Safeway or Giant. Cece's is fantastic for that. I do apologize.
We're gonna sell advertising, Mr. Town Manager. That's how we can raise funds for what we want to do. Us talking about institutions locally.
And I do apologize for there being so many wonderful eateries in Ward 1 that I forgot to list a couple. So thank you for correcting me.
Hold your feet to the fire.
Okay, Councilmember Foe, go ahead. You've got your microphone on. Go ahead.
So many incredible things being talked about and important things being talked about, and I really do want to comment on all of them. But my community took a big hit today, and it's kind of the only thing that I have in my viewpoint or my vantage. One of my very close friends, Jimmy, lost his mother today, and it's just an abrupt loss for our community. She was a remarkable woman, and it's hard to see outside of that right now. So I hope you'll just stay with me for a minute, and then I will be gone, I promise, or I will be short. Growing up in Western Pennsylvania in the early 2000s, it was a difficult time and place to be a part of with the eruption of the opioid crisis. My friend group was savagely attacked by this. Jimmy and I's best friend Chris, a pharmacy student at Duquesne University, lost his life to heroin. Jimmy himself was heavily addicted, and as I'm communicating with him today about the loss of his mother, a lot of those stories come up. And I know that, when I think about this, they're like, what message can I convey to the community about Jackie? Substance abuse affects all communities. And it feels like it is a road that is a losing road, because so many times it frequently is. And I'm sitting here telling you from my experience today, that Jimmy is one of those kids that had a mom that just absolutely would never give up on him. He's 18 years clean this week, and he got sober because his mom said, "This is it. This is the last time, Jimmy." And he stayed by her side for 4 straight months, slept in the same bedroom with her, and that's just the love that she had for her son. And I hope that anybody in our community, if you're going through those struggles, I hope that you can recognize that your commitment can and will pay off in circumstances. And this situation with my friend is one of those positive lights where your engagement and your involvement and your commitment to your loved ones can really reap rewards. I want the communities that I'm involved in to recognize those people that have been through that struggle, who have come out the other end. And we're not talking about, my friend that I lost. We're talking about my friend that I got back and who healed with his mother and had that's what he keeps referencing it as. These last 18 years have been the most positive 18 years of my life, because I was finally able to look my mother in the eye and say, I'm clean and I can be that human being that she wants me to be. So if you're a family and you're struggling with that kind of stuff, I just want you to know that we're thinking about you and that there is hope. And the story of my friend Jimmy and his mom, Jackie, is truly a remarkable story of love and commitment to your family, that we shouldn't hide from these stories. We should celebrate them, because there is positive outcomes that exist there. And I hope that if you or your family is struggling with that you hear this and you gain hope from that. Jackie, we will miss you. We love you. And I just can't wait to be with my friends and family to mourn and celebrate her life. So with that, I yield my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, council member, and please accept my condolences. Sounds like she was a remarkable woman. Councilmember Lingua, Ward 3.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief on this. It is a sad day in Memphis, a sad day for that city, a sad day for that department. Speaking as the great grandson of a former policeman of the city of Memphis, very sad day. It's a sad day for everybody there. And my hope is, as Memphians are known to do, is to get a handle on the situation and to come out of it a stronger metropolitan area, to be able to have the earnest and frank discussions that they all need to in their community, so that something like this doesn't happen again, because it's something that shouldn't happen at all. Outside of that comment, I will reserve everything that I would want to share with the body next week.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Sadiq, Ward 4.
Yes, I've been made aware of a concerning situation in Ward 4. It sounds like we're going to be encountering a homeless man who's going to die on our streets by the end of this winter. And apparently there's not much we can do. The police have been involved, but this is a tragedy that's developing slowly in our town. And I wanted to make sure people knew about it in case anyone else can come up with a better plan on how to move forward.
Thank you, Councilmember. As I think you know, I've been monitoring the situation, trying to figure out what we can do, and there's not a lot of answers. It's a problem.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back. I have not heard from Councilmember Mejia. Is she present? Oh, Councilmember Lingua, yes?
Regarding the homeless person, I take it county has been contacted?
County is aware.
Okay.
Yes, and Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Please.
Chief Quixons, you've been in direct contact with the county's crisis team. Do you have any update you can provide to the council?
Yes, I as recent as last week, I believe it was, I spoke with Tamika from their crisis intervention team. And they did stop by and visit with him. They're all very aware and of Calvin, because Calvin's been around our surrounding municipalities for years. They're very aware of him. They said he refused services again. And he was a topic of conversation because this week, 4 of our officers attended a crisis intervention class all week long in Greenbelt. And some of them that know Calvin personally, they talked about a homeless man, and Officer Saunders was one of the officers in the class. And he said, "Are you talking about Calvin?" And they said, "Yes." So they had a long conversation about Calvin and everything that he's been offered, and what we're doing for him and what the county's trying to do for him, but he continues to refuse. So it's very difficult to force anybody to do anything. They do say that after years of trying, oftentimes they will change their minds and then take the help that's being offered to them. But right now, all we can do is keep checking on them.
Thanks.
And people are feeding him. He had new shoes. He's had a new coat. So it's just a really tough situation.
Thank you, Chief. So anyway, I did not see Councilmember Mejia. Is Councilmember Mayers? There you are. Councilmember Mayers, Ward 6. Do you have a report?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. No one reports at this time.
Thank you very much. Okay, that gets us through council, committee, and ward reports. Are there any public comments? I don't see any hands up, and I don't see any unmuted microphones. So I will move on to our work session discussion items. First item, fence permit request, 6-foot vinyl fence at 5010 Nicholas Street.
Director Barnes or Shelton?
Certainly. Good evening again, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. Staff are seeking direction from the mayor and council tonight regarding a fence permit request for a 6-foot vinyl fence at 5010 Nicholson Street, pursuant to Chapter 66 of the Town Code. The town received a building permit application from Ms. Jackson Lee for the installation of a 6-foot vinyl fence in the backyard of 5010 Nicholson Street. The project included the removal of the previous fence made of both wood and chain link, and the replacement with a lovely vinyl 6-foot fence in the backyard and a 4-foot fence in the front yard. The project has been completed and the applicant has obtained a Prince George's County permit for the project. Staff are reporting that all administrative requirements have been met for this fence permit.
Thank you, Director Barnes. You said that the fence was constructed before the permit was acquired, however, and
yes.
And so the application in such a case includes a sort of mandatory fine, isn't that correct? Additional fee?
We don't have an additional fee at this time. And actually this situation, Mayor Thompson, was a little bit different. So the applicant had contacted the town prior to constructing the fence, and we had instructed the applicant that they needed to have a fence permit for the fence. But when they met with their contractor several months later, the contractor informed them incorrectly that they did not need a county or a town permit because it was actually in the exact same place. However, the rule of thumb is if you're changing the material, changing the height, or replacing, more than 50% of the fence, you typically need a permit, even at the county level. And so when this application came to staff through the accessory structure grant process, we realized obviously that the fence had not come before the mayor and council. And so we had to work backwards. Councilman Lingua and I discussed this topic actually, and came up with maybe a way to address this, because this isn't the first time, I think, as the council you've seen where the contractor has given incorrect information to one of our residents. So the outreach will be made to the contractor in writing what the town's requirements are for fences. But I do think this circumstance was a little bit different because it was a miscommunication. The resident did reach out before the before the fence was constructed.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Council discussion, this is Ward 3, correct? Councilmember Lingua?
Yes, it is. I get to go by that lovely new fence every day. And I look at it, and when I read this and I saw this, I thought, true to form in the old 20737, yet another ex post facto fence before us. And this is why Ms. Barnes and I had a discussion about what could possibly be done. And it seems like the pattern on this, as I know you're very well aware of, Mr. Mayor, is the fact that residents get bad information from the contractors. And the idea came up with, and to have council consider, and staff please to give feedback on, is essentially apprising contractors. In this case, this will be after the fact for this contractor, but in a sense, being told is, being forewarned that should this happen again with them, we probably won't go as easy, and this may also be something that we need to think about how this could be put into the code, whichever chapter would be appropriate under fines. Because my thought is, if a contractor is giving erroneous information, I see the contractor is as much at fault as the homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our general thought on this. Happy to let someone know ahead of time, politely and nicely. Look, should you be doing business in the town of Riverdale Park involving any type of fence work or however it would be phrased, that would require a permit, or essentially saying like this type of work requires a permit from the town of Riverdale Park, and giving them a full-on list. And if they have any questions, that they should contact the town. But I think it's time that we let contractors know, and also be a way, post it however we can, both on our website or on our well, primarily the website. Also, if we need to make this a announcement of record, of which appears in a publication or in a circulation, if that's an avenue to pursue, I would be interested in hearing if staff would think that would be effective. and probably if this is something that needs to go before, brought to Mr. Sussman's attention, so that we are on solid legal footing. But I think this is something that just needs to be addressed.
I'm happy to discuss my thoughts on this. I've had some ideas for many years, and I'll be happy to discuss them with you, council member, anytime.
Love to.
Okay. What would
But
you
as
like?
for the fence, I would say I would appreciate it if council would be amenable to placing this on consent agenda.
I see one thumbs up from Councilmember Foe. I will presume that it's okay to put it on the consent agenda unless I hear otherwise. See a lot of thumbs going up.
Okay,
So
thank you very much.
I will plan to do that. Can of course be changed at the meeting if necessary. Okay, next item on the agenda, fiscal year 2023 revenue update.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. Tonight's revenue report covers revenue from the current fiscal year, July up to January 27th, and the 3 fiscal years that preceded. And again, we have 5 major revenue categories. First being local taxes. So for the current fiscal year, local taxes total $5,649,130. This includes real estate taxes, personal property tax, local income taxes, and operating tax. If you look in the previous fiscal years, we had a total of $6,132,000 for fiscal year 2022. Fiscal year 2021, we were at $6,012,000, and then fiscal year 2020, $5,818,000. So as far as real estate taxes are concerned, again, this has been a fairly odd year. Prince George's County was late in issuing tax bills, and as a result, there was delay in town receiving revenues. So in the last fiscal year, we received all of our real estate revenue at the point that we're at right now. And last week, we just received a report where we are expecting to receive an additional $300,000. And also heard back from MuniCap that we can expect TIF revenue to flow back to that line item as well. So while it is lower than it's been in the 2 previous fiscal years, it's more of a delay. We do expect to receive that revenue. Personal property tax, with a total of $300,000, which is also much lower than the previous years. And again, this number is due to a higher tangible threshold. For local income taxes, the town is outperforming with a total of $374,000. Previous year, $327,000. And we're about the same place that we were in the previous fiscal year. For operating tax, we have a total of $229,000. Last fiscal year, $224,000 was the total. The next major category is licenses and permits, which includes single family, multifamily, rental licenses, building permits, business licenses, and parking permits. So the total for the current fiscal year, $197,049. Previous fiscal year was $184,000. Fiscal year 2021, $188,000, and fiscal year 2020, a total of $178,000. Next major category that we have is administrative fees, which includes abatement charges and municipal infractions. Total for the current fiscal year is $31,680. The majority of that coming from municipal infractions. Again, our neighborhood services team is doing a great job ensuring that the town code is being upheld. And so that number is significantly higher than what we've seen in the past. Next major category is fines and forfeitures. We have a total of $30,190. This includes police reports, vehicle impounds, and parking citations. At this point, vehicle impounds are higher than they've been in the past 2 fiscal years, but kind of right on board with where we were in fiscal 20. fiscal year 2020. And our last major category is community safety programs. We have a total of 692,396 for the current fiscal year, and which is down a bit from the previous fiscal year where we had a total of 777,000. So at this point, while speed camera revenue is still high, it looks like we are heading in the right direction as far as enforcement for speed cameras, as the revenue is coming down. So yeah, that concludes the community safety programs. So we have a total of $6,600,446 for the current fiscal year. At this point last year, the total was $7,120,335. So at this point, we are actually, when we include all of our revenue items, we are at 80% of our budgeted revenue figure. So the town is in a healthy financial position. Again, local taxes, where the majority of the town revenue sits, is a bit lower, and it's more of a delay than anything else. And we should expect to see that revenue in the next month. So yeah, that concludes our revenue report for tonight. If there are any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Deputy Director Jones. Council members, are there any questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
The number on the business licenses, number 4114. Revenues from the county business licenses.
Yeah, so the 4114, that line item represents the money that we receive actually from Prince George's County, their portion of business licenses that are paid. So that's not a number that we typically have any control over. We just receive that figure and we put it at that line item there.
Okay, so do we know what's that? I mean, what that difference entails? Or is it just an amount that the county goes out?
We kind of get it sporadically throughout the entire fiscal year. But I can definitely check and look to see what the difference is, and I can follow up with you on that.
Because it looks like they're collecting a fee and then they're passing on what is duly ours. Correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so by this time, last fiscal year, being that we're at the halfway point, we were looking at a figure of, roughly, I'm ballparking here, 60-some% higher than what we're seeing so far this year.
Yeah, at this point, yeah, that is accurate. If you look in 2020, though, our number was really low. We had collected just at the 15, and then we jumped up in fiscal year 2021, and then we had a significant jump. So I can definitely look into that and see if last year was more of an outlier year, and now we're kind of coming back to where we typically sit.
Yeah, if you could, I'd appreciate it. I'm just
Absolutely.
I'm kind of curious what's behind that. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the council or from members of the public about the revenue report? Okay.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I have one more.
Yes.
If I may. 4401 safe speed for students. The amount that we're looking at there, we're roughly about 11% down from what last year's was. Not that we're down, but it's 11% less than what last year's was, which, as you mentioned, is a very positive sign. Based on this, what is the estimated projection for what that total revenue might be in relation to what we projected for the budget.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
The 691,000, being that this
Mhm.
is essentially we're at the midpoint of the year. And while it is good that it's 11% less than last year's, is this amount, in line with us, essentially bringing, having this go over our revenue estimate or under our revenue estimate?
At this point, yeah,
Year.
it's looking like, so when we created the budget, we were very conservative with with the revenue that we had projected out. As we get closer to putting together the budget process, we may actually have to, and we'll get back to you and let you know, but we may actually have to make another amendment like we did last year, because the revenue outperformed what we had budgeted. And when the revenue goes up, the expenditures have to go up as well.
And I can add something to that. I just pulled up the budget. In fiscal 23, we have revenue projected at 708, or budgeted at 782,000. And so
okay.
And so we're going to exceed our revenue projection. I think that's what you were trying to get at, sir.
Yeah, I was just trying to get at that, just, for the reasons that have just been brought up regarding, are we going to be coming back again and needing to make a adjustment in order to cover the costs of everyone pressing down a little bit more than they should with their right foot?
Yeah. So as Mr. Jones said, we may, if the revenue and expenses exceed, but the budget, the anticipated revenue was 782,000, and we're at 691. So we will exceed the revenue, which means we'll exceed the expenditures.
Well, just keep us posted. Thank you.
Okay, any additional council or public questions on the revenue report? Okay, let's move on to the next two items. I'm going to discuss process just a little bit. I've been having some discussions with the town attorney about exactly what we do about the two competing maps for ward boundaries. And we have sort of settled on a process, which I read Robert's rules carefully just before this meeting, and we may need to go back and revisit it. But the idea was that one of the existing maps will be introduced, and then there will be a motion to replace it with the maps that were adjusted at the work session a few weeks ago. And then it will be voted in. And then the second ordinance the town attorney suggested having a motion to reject the second ordinance. I think we could also just not have a motion to adopt it and let it drop off of the agenda in that way. If it is brought up, then it can be disposed of, as all legislation can, by a motion to delay consideration indefinitely, postpone consideration indefinitely. And that's a debatable motion, so we can discuss whether that's a good idea should it happen. So with that, Councilmember Sadiq may not be up on the latest maps, as he was not in the country during our last meeting. So I'm going to share my screen, if I may. Getting a host disabled participant screen sharing.
Director Barnes.
Still getting that message? which is, I think, generally a good idea. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to turn off my camera momentarily because this is on my second monitor. And you'll be looking in my ear if I leave my camera on. It's only if I can figure out how to turn my camera off. Be fine. So, assuming you can see my cursor, this is one of the maps that we had. This is not the map that those at the meeting on the 17th viewed as a consensus map, but I thought I would put it up there just so everyone could see it. And we can discuss it in a little while. This is the map that was chosen to be the consensus map at the meeting on the 17th. There were some minor adjustments from what was introduced, namely that I'll zoom in a little bit here. This block had been in what is likely to be Ward 2. That was moved back into Ward 3. And this area had been in Ward 3 and moved into Ward 4. So from the green ward here into the orange ward. So those are the major changes. I would like to pull the northern part of Oglethorpe into Ward 3. These three houses, well, it's two properties, three properties, there's two houses. The leftmost property, there's no house there. And so I would like to pull those into Ward 3 just for simplifying the description of the wards a little bit. And we never know what is going to happen on houses like that. So it'd be nice to have, just in case someone ends up living in them, to have them living across the street from people also in the same ward. So those are the maps. That is the proposed process for how to deal with them next week. And I'm happy to have any discussion that the council would like to have. Or members of the public.
Mr. Mayor, could you explode that again?
Certainly, give me just a moment.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I think what you may want to verify is that 50, what is it going to be? 5024 Oglethorpe is positioned in what would be Ward 2.
Can you tell me which one it is? Is it?
It's that very purple dot on the corner.
This one?
No, go right above it.
That one.
Yes.
Oh, yes, it's the even side of the street is the north side. So do you believe that that should be in Ward 2?
Well, if you're going to have the rest of that portion of Oglethorpe, and as you were saying, neighbors, you wanted to avoid neighbors next to each other being in different wards.
Mm-hmm.
You may want to include that one in the proposed, what would be called Ward 2.
Okay, my memory of those houses is that this house is actually sort of, as shown, is set back from the street.
You have two houses set back from the street. One was set that way on the lot. The other one is a flag house that sits behind another property. So,
right, and so the question is whether those houses, whether this house has more connection with the house across Oglethorpe, or whether it has more connection with those houses that are set back. And I will absolutely defer to your judgment on that.
I would, being that it is an Oglethorpe address, I would locate it accordingly.
Okay. I would be happy to make that change.
So thus, as you were saying before, with the 3 properties at the other end of Oglethorpe on the north side for for simplicity's sake, that's what I would recommend.
Okay. Happy to do that. Ms. Billington.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I actually own a property on 5019 Oglethorpe, which I believe would be part of the new blue section. And I'm just wondering for the properties that are sort of, I think, where the street is split, like it is shown in that particular section, and also I guess the 2 outlier pink pink houses that are part of that ward. Is there a way to ensure that the property owners and residents of those particular areas that are I guess parsed off like that are able to maybe encourage participation in the next meeting to review this map, so that since they'll be probably more directly impacted, that they have at least they're made aware and encouraged to come to the meeting where this is discussed.
I've been doing my best to reach out in every way I can imagine to reach people. Do you have a suggestion for how we might reach them? I mean, you're talking about dropping leaflets there? Or
Yeah, or even going door to door. It's kind of a I think for any of these neighborhoods that are sort of in a weird split, I think that would probably be the best way. That they might not be aware that that they might be impacted by the current map evaluations. I'm certainly happy to speak to my neighbors on Oglethorpe. The will be at least some of the street.
Okay. Councilmember Lingua, are you willing to do some door knocking? I can definitely, just print out a couple of dozen of these maps and drop them on people's doorsteps and say, give me a call. Could do that this weekend.
Mr. Mayor,
Mhm.
I will make you this offer.
Okay.
Were you to print up said map and afford language to go with it, I would be happy to make sure that those would be distributed to those properties.
Okay. I will arrange.
Would that suffice?
Oh, definitely. No question.
Okay.
And Ms. Billington, I presume you have this might be your first glimpse of the many versions of these maps that have been going on, and it is driven by connectivity, by trying as best we can to keep the number of people in each ward the same. Each ward should have the same number of people, and also there's some legal requirements, but we had some big changes in population, and so the ward boundaries shifted, and your street happened to end up on the or the street happened to end up on the border.
Yeah, no, understood. I don't actually have a particular opinion myself, but I feel like my neighbors might not be aware of the current boundaries. So I just want to make sure that because if they aren't aware, I will certainly hear about it at some point.
Okay, I mean this entire block used to be in, or it currently is in Ward 3, and so that's one of the major changes that happened here, is that one shifted. But I think we'll be fine to try to communicate to those residents.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
What I would also be willing to do is, as you have a number of properties on Taylor and on Riverdale Road, I would be happy to drop off said document at those addresses as well.
Okay. I will try to count up the number of houses and get you 10% more than that.
Okay, one of those is gonna be a multi-family unit on
Yes.
Riverdale.
Mhm.
Okay,
I'm well aware of that, that small apartment building, small multi-unit.
sure. Okay.
Okay, any additional council questions or comments, public questions or comments? Councilmember Sadiq, do you have any concerns about this map that you want to discuss?
I'm happy with it.
Okay. If that's it, then let's move on the agenda. I guess I need to give control back, don't I? Which means I need to find the little. You can seize it back from me, Director Barnes. That would be best. I never have been able to find that reliably.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
you know, now that you've reduced the map back there, and I guess you could say in all fairness to the residents that are over at the other end of Oglethorpe who would be affected by this map. Were you to make enough copies that were able to be distributed to those houses, I would be more than happy to do so.
Is town staff willing to bear the cost of the reproductions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I will get a document into town staff's hands before Wednesday. I know that it's common for staff to be on site on Wednesday and print them out, and Councilmember Lingo could perhaps just pick them up directly.
I would be willing to help out as well, council member, if you want help.
I will let you know.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's move along on the agenda to item 5. Ordinance 2023-OR-01 regarding 2023 town election.
Director Barnes.
Good evening, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. No action is requested tonight. This is just another opportunity to discuss the ordinance, preparing for legislative action on February the 6th. This ordinance just outlines some of the details for the upcoming election. And if you'll note, the one caveat we added this year to the ordinance with the help of Town Attorney Sussman is just in case Town Hall is under construction, that there will be a secondary site that could be considered, which would be the fire department. But other than that, it's the standard setting the date, time, location, types of ballot used, and the deadline and the fee for candidates filing.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Members of the council, any comments or questions? Councilmember Smith.
Sorry if I just missed it here, but what is there a date for when qualifying starts? I see the deadline, but I'm wondering if that's sort of a rolling open window, or if it actually begins on a certain day.
So it typically is a rolling window, but of course, redistricting right now is going to impact that because of the stipulation that you need to get signatures for the council members, specifically of residents within your ward. So we need to get the redistricting component done, and then we'll be able to get the information out.
Makes sense. Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Any additional council or public questions or comments? Okay, let's move on to the next item, acquisition of vehicles, suspension of competitive bidding.
Director Lewis.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. No action is actually requested this evening. Instead, at Monday's legislative session, staff will request approval of resolution 2023 R5, regarding the suspension of competitive bidding for purchase of vehicles. Council has twice authorized the suspension of competitive bidding for vehicle purchases in light of supply chain issues for vehicles and the very tight market for purchasing vehicles and the need to move quickly on purchases when opportunities arise. The last authorization expired December 31st before staff could find vehicles to purchase. We were, however, successful at purchasing the Bobcat approved in the CIP before the expiration. We actually found a general purpose truck to purchase last week, but lost the opportunity to close the deal when we couldn't act immediately. So staff will request a suspension of competitive bidding through the end of the current fiscal year under the same conditions that were in place for previous suspensions, including the purchases must meet the vehicle specifications described in Exhibit 1 of the resolution. The cumulative cost of all vehicles purchased shall not exceed the amount approved in the CIP, and the cost for any one vehicle shall not exceed $125,000. And with that, I'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lewis. Members of the council, Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Lewis. I'm wondering if it would make sense, or if you know there are any roadblocks to this, to allow the town manager to make this purchase without a deadline, but you know, with some sort of requirement to notify the mayor or council or something. It struck me that, you know, I know we have, I think, lost out on vehicles before for this same reason, and you mentioned that we lost out on one last week. So I'm just wondering if there's anything further we can do to prevent that from happening.
I defer to the town manager.
I think this for now would be the mechanism, and then if the council would want to consider any sort of change, it would be a change to the charter, and so that certainly can happen. But it's something that would be a longer process requiring a public hearing and that sort of thing. The reason why we have put these shorter time periods on these, asking for a number of months at a time, is to try to strike balance and be respectful to the council and their role in deciding whether or not we can make acquisitions above a certain dollar amount. And so that's staff driven in terms of asking for a few months at a time.
Understood. Thank you for that. Appreciate all those concerns, Mr. Town Manager. I just ask that so we can help support the staff in making these acquisitions that you know, if it looks like this is going to expire and we haven't made those purchases yet, if we could get this authorization before the council to get that done, so there's no gap there.
Yes, and we appreciate that support, sir. And if we're still finding that the same situation as we enter the next year, and this is buying commercial vehicles, so even though some things have normalized in the automotive market, it really hasn't yet with the larger trucks. And so if we find ourselves as we enter the next fiscal year, if the council would be open to it, we certainly would be, from a staff perspective, fine asking for a longer period of time, perhaps that fiscal year.
Yeah, you know, subject, as long as there's that's something I would support, as long as there's, you know, a provision that, you know, there'll be a notification to the mayor and council. I just know that and appreciate all the work that it probably takes staff to identify these vehicles and contact the vendor and all that, and then to miss out on it because it didn't fit onto our calendar as the mayor and council. We don't want to be holding you guys up. So anything we can do to support the staff in these actions, I'd be in favor of.
Greatly appreciate that, sir. When I worked in another jurisdiction, there was a ratification process where you would come back after such a purchase and present it to mayor and council to ratify it. And so it was a formal process, and that's something that we can certainly explore and come back and talk to you all about.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, is there additional council or public comments on this, this proposed suspension? Okay. Next item on the agenda, tenant protection legislation amendments to chapter 55.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. No, staff is seeking input regarding proposed amendments to Chapter 55, rental licenses and inspections of the town code. In the last few months, I'm struggling today. Neighborhood Services has found that multifamily rental properties have faced problems with their heating facilities and numerous other property maintenance issues. Some of these situations potentially could lead to situations that would endanger the life and health and safety of the tenants. And during these situations, when town staff has worked alongside the management staff, there's been a bit of a scramble to find a solution because there was no emergency plan in place by the management staff for the ownership. Staff are suggesting that the rental license program be amended to require that an emergency response plan be submitted along with the license application. The plan would include items such as a list of emergency contact numbers for property owners, a plan for communicating with the residents during an emergency, relocation sites should a unit be or if the resident needs to be temporarily relocated. This would mean the location and contact information for the new site, transportation for those residents and tenants that do not have access to their own transportation. I know that this was a particular concern during that late evening with the multifamily apartment building that did not have heat. We were scrambling quite a bit to find a way to transport some residents that may not otherwise have access to do so. And lastly, I guess record keeping for all the drills and procedures and plans that the multifamily building might need in the future for additional emergencies. This is not an all-inclusive list, but this is just a list of some of the items that might be included on the emergency plan. And this ideally would help the multifamilies respond more quickly and with better decisions than we've seen so far. In addition to these emergency situations, staff have also found that multifamily properties are facing some pest control problems. The town's property maintenance code says that the owner of any structure shall be responsible for pest elimination within the structure prior to renting or leasing the structure. And they're also responsible for pest elimination in the shared and common areas. And so we found that many multifamily properties don't actually have an integrated pest management plan, which is a plan that is recommended by the EPA, the American Public Health Association, HUD, the National Pest Management Association, and they're generally considered a best practice for management of multifamily housing. Staff are suggesting that in addition to the previous amendment, that rental license applications for multifamily buildings also will require an integrated pest management plan. This would include items such as the dates throughout the year when the property is regularly inspected, identification of pests present on the site, ongoing monitoring efforts to detect new infestations and track population levels, implementation of preventative measures, implementation of control measures, such as trapping, baiting, and using pesticides, and educating tenants on how to identify pests and prevent pests. If the mayor and council wish to pursue these amendments, staff will work with the town attorney to draft an ordinance. And these amendments could take effect as early as the next rental license renewal period. Are there any questions about the proposed amendments?
Councilmember Foe had his hand up so fast it was unbelievable. Go ahead, Councilmember.
No, I think this is remarkable legislation to consider. Just looking at the proposed areas that we could influence our residents living under rental license or in the covered by rental license and inspections. The stories that we've heard about collection of trash, about pests, about the issues with doors and locks. It just seems absolutely right. This is the next area that we should move into, being able to help our residents living in apartment complexes. I feel like this is great stuff. I'm excited to see what we can come up with. Honestly, really good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would echo the council member from Ward 2's thanks and gratitude for the work put into this. This looks really great. I'm wondering, do we have the authority to levy fines when a property owner is found to be in violation of these standards?
Currently, there's nothing in the town code that requires an emergency plan or an integrated pest management plan. But this amendment would require that as part of the rental license process, the rental license program for the multifamily properties. So currently, there is no requirement.
But more broadly for these conditions, so if a heating facility doesn't work or an elevator doesn't work, or if there's infestations, we do have that ability to levy fines more broadly. This is to be proactive.
Sure.
And I did want to add, I've been around rental license legislation for more than 20 years. And I've never had seen a jurisdiction that had done something like this. And I just want to publicly say that Director Chelton came up with these concepts. And I want to applaud him for thinking progressively on ways to protect our tenant population and to ensure their safety and try to avoid the types of situations that many of them have gone through this past winter.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. It's outstanding work. And thank you, Mr. Chelton. This is really great stuff. I just want to make sure that this is, and I know I assume this was the intent as well, but that this, as we codify this, that it's as strong as possible in terms of not just carrots, but sticks. And in fact, I'd wonder if we could include a provision that when facilities are found to be in violation of this, that there must be public notice. Is that possible?
In terms of pointing out that someone has failed to do this, we most definitely can bring that information to a mayor and council meeting and share it publicly.
Well, I mean, I think our residents or potential residents should be made aware when landlords are not meeting basic standards of living for their tenants.
And that we can do as well, sir. Actually, our hope for when we launch our new software program, that we would have a public portal where folks would be able to search not only current license status, but inspection results as well. So that's something that's long been on our list and we're working towards. So that information would be available to the public. And
that all sounds outstanding, Mr. Town Manager. And I know this issue is very important to you as well. So I thank you for all the work of you and your staff on keeping slumlords out of our community.
We certainly are trying, sir. But it is a challenge. If someone fails to do this, as what the town's envisioning, and what Mr. Chelton has said, is that if someone fails to submit an adequate emergency response plan, Because those plans, it's not just checking a box, did you submit it? It's whether or not it meets the standards. We would not issue a license. And without a license, then the landlord's going to find themselves in a very difficult situation. And when a boiler goes out, and you have 1,000 residents living in your building, it's the plans that Mr. Shelton and I are talking about are plans they're going to say, we have a company lined up that we can rent a boiler, because that's actually a thing. They can bring one in on a semi and hook it up to the building. And there are local companies, Baltimore, that do that. And so we're really looking for ownership to take things to a new level, sir.
That all sounds great, Mr. Town Manager. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Shelton, again.
Thank you.
Are there additional council comments or public comments on this proposed early in its life legislation? Not seeing any hands or.
Very nice piece of work. Thank you.
Councilmember Linkletter, there, your microphone. Yeah.
Very nice piece of work. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So if there are no other comments, I have just a couple of ideas to throw out on the emergency response plan. If you could scroll down just a little bit to get all 5 bullets. Yeah, thank you. So this looks comprehensive. The one thing I would say is that probably there are multiple emergency response plans. You may have already thought about this. So the response that you would have in the aftermath of a fire versus a hurricane versus a boiler are all very different. And so there may be that you have to deal with more than one class of emergency. And there are also different stages of an emergency. So if you know that a hurricane is coming, then there are things that you could do to make it work better. And but except for those, I have a bunch of other ideas. I mean, I assume that the record keeping, where the plan is stored, that the town would have on file a copy of the emergency plans of each of these organizations, so that should they be unable to find it at some point, then we would be able to read it to them over the phone. So just a couple of ideas. I look forward to seeing this develop as we go forward. It's great to see this. Any other discussion? Okay, let's go on to item 8, defined benefit plan, Board of Trustees appointments.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. No action is required at the work session. Staff requests that the Mayor and Council adopt Resolution 2023 R-032. Appoint members of the Defined Benefit Plan Board of Trustees at the February 6th legislative meeting. Town Code Chapter 54-2C specifies that the board shall consist of 5 voting members and outline these terms as follow: the town manager, permanent member of the board, a member of the town council, permanent appointment of the board concurrent with their term of office. Council member Lingua is currently a member of the board. 2 town employees below the level of department head who are vested in the plan. 2-year term. Lieutenant, or is now actually Deputy Director Robert Turner is currently a member of the board, and the second seat is vacant. 1 person with financial, banking, investment, accounting, administrative business experience, and not an employee of the institute, which is a trustee, PNC in our case, for any funds. A 2-year term. Currently Deputy Director Financial Services, Gentry Jones, is currently a member of the board. The code goes on and says the members of the board, including the chairperson of the board, who is also a board member, shall be appointed by the mayor, subject to the confirmation of the town council. Members, aside from the town manager and the members of the town council, are appointed to 2-year terms and serve until their successor have been appointed, confirmed, and qualified. The appointment of the current members expired on November the 3rd, 2022, and there is one vacancy. Resolution 2023 R-03 would reappoint the current members and appoint records and parking manager Tracy Perrin to fill that vacancy. And if you have any questions, do let me know.
Can't hear you, Mr. Mayor.
Has to happen once every meeting. So thank you, Director Smith. Council members, are there any comments or questions on this resolution and this presentation?
I have none.
Members of the public, any comments or questions? Okay, I think this is good to reappoint the members, and I think Ms. Perrin will be very good as filling that empty slot. So thank you for the recommendations.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the next agenda item, number 9, Legacy Mixed Use Town Center Local Design Review Committee. That's a mouthful. Committee nominations.
Good evening, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. No actions requested tonight. Staff received, actually the mayor received a letter from Park and Planning informing us that it was time to nominate the members of the Legacy Mixed Use Town Center Local Design Review Committee. And that process, it usually happens by resolution. The mayor and council will pass a resolution nominating members for the committee, and then the planning board will actually make the appointments. And so that process is now. We can reach out to the current members, or we can solicit volunteers, whatever the direction of the mayor and council is, to assist with the process.
Thank you, Director Barnes. If you can just scroll down a little bit, I wanted to point out one issue, which is that since the last time we did this, we have switched from being in MUTC to being in Legacy MUTC. And if you scroll a little bit up, there's some boldface text on the first page of the letter that says giving the membership, and it says a minimum of 1 serving member on each LMUTC Design Review Committee shall be a design professional or demonstrate experience in the fields of architecture, engineering, historic preservation, or planning. And the designation in our own design plan is slightly different than that. It's less restrictive than this. I believe that we aren't going to have any problem meeting this. I think that perhaps as much as half of the members meet this at this time, but just wanted to point out that there is a discrepancy there. And because the zoning ordinance that went into effect changed the requirements, that we do have to meet these, as opposed to the ones in the design plan. And I will be happy to reach out to the committee on Wednesday night when we meet to find out if they are interested in serving another term. So members of the council, any questions or comments? It's going to be a little bit interesting with the MUTC zone apparently split across 2 wards, how we handle that. So we'll see what happens.
Mr. Mayor, I think we should invite Councilmember Foe to the wonderful world of MUTC, so he could see the inner workings of that committee. I think he would be a valuable asset.
Okay, well, we have 2 municipal representatives, and so have to consider how to do that.
Thank you, council member, for that recommendation. I can't wait to find things to recommend you for.
Anytime, Councilman.
Okay, let's move on. If there's no additional discussion, any public comments or questions? Let's move on then to item 10, town election judges and Board of Elections appeals members.
Good evening again, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. No action is requested tonight at the work session. Staff requests that the mayor and council adopt resolutions at a future meeting in February to appoint members, to appoint election judges and members of the Board of Election Appeals. This year, it's a little bit different because we have the Board of Elections. So there's only a couple of seats that are vacant for election judges, but we still have a full panel of alternate election judges that's needed, as well as the Board of Election Appeals. And at the bottom of the memo lists the folks who served as election judges last year, as well as those that served on the Board of Election Appeals. Staff will be happy to reach out to see if they're interested in serving again, or certainly the mayor and council can recommend members to both bodies, election judges and the Board of Election Appeals.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Members of the council, thoughts? Would you like to have staff reach out? Would you like to reach out yourselves?
Mr. Mayor, is there any prohibition on family members of the council serving on this? I asked because my wife would totally nerd out over this, but I of course want to avoid any ethical issues or other.
I don't remember if there are specific prohibitions. Staff, do you have? I think it would be best to choose someone not in your own household.
Sounds good. Thank you. I would be in trouble if I didn't ask. So
I know. Sorry to disappoint you and your wife.
no problem.
I will. I'll send out a couple of messages and see if I can get some suggestions. And I'll try and get back to you within 24 hours, Director Barnes.
Okay, very good. Any additional council or public comments on this item? Okay, let's move on to item 11, affirmation of quiet zone.
Good evening again, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. Staff recently received a letter from, no action again is requested tonight. Let me start off with that one. The staff recently received a letter regarding the need to affirm the quiet zone, which is established at the Queensbury Road Railroad crossing. So in 2015, the town went through a process to establish the quiet zone at Queensbury Road Railroad crossing. And if the mayor and council would like to continue to have the quiet zone, staff must take, or the town must take certain action to reaffirm the quiet zone as outlined in the attached letter from CX or from the Federal Railroad Administration.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Members of the council, thoughts?
Silence is golden.
Seconded.
Yeah, I can't even think of the slightest reason we wouldn't want to affirm the quiet zone. So please move forward with all due haste, and we might ask if we can in any way strengthen or extend it. As long as we got them listening to us. Okay, any additional council or public comments on this item? Okay, last item on the agenda are minutes. Please read through them and be sure that what you said is captured so that you can have history know what you said as opposed to something you didn't say. So I think that's all I need to say there. Moving on the agenda, we have a few things left. Any items of new business?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Town Manager. I just wanted to tell an individual story very quickly, Mr. Mayor, about a constituent concern the other day. I had a constituent reach out about trash issues on their street. They were very concerned. They sent pictures. And like I would normally do, I forwarded that information to Mr. Town Manager and Director Lewis. Director Lewis, within potentially an hour, maybe, had responded to me about an action plan of increasing public works looking into the area, simultaneously reaching out to potential causes of the trash. Within 30 minutes of receiving that email, the constituent reached out to me again to tell me that the trash had already been cleaned up. They were so happy to engage government and be involved in this process. And they actually even attended our work session that evening, or it might have been a legislative session or a lax meeting. And I just wanted to convey that story to you guys. Mr. Town Manager, your staff is awesome. That's to all of you guys. Director Lewis, it is always a pleasure to work with you because that is the kind of response that we've grown accustomed to, because your professionalism is fantastic. So I just wanted to state, I wanted the town to know that this is what it's like working with our staff. They are tremendous professionals, and I just wanted to highlight that. So thank you very much for making us look good.
Thank you, sir. And I'm going to pass that on to DPW staff.
Please do.
It's really great when we live the saying that municipal government works, because it sure does.
It's really awesome. Like, you can point to it and you can see tangible impacts immediately, and people immediately become engaged. And it's just great to work with people that are so great.
Agreed. And I will ask Director Lewis to please pass my thanks on to the staff as well. So
Certainly.
it's
Thank
nice when these problems get solved before they even get to me. That's the best thing. I have plenty to worry about as it is. Any additional discussions under new business? Any items of unfinished business? Okay, looks like we're going to squeak out just before 10 p.m. It's 9:57. It'll be 9:58 by the time I find my gavel, which is hiding here. So have a good evening, everybody. It's been a great meeting, and see you all next week. We're
Thank you,
adjourned
everyone.
at 9:58.
Till then, take care.
Good evening.
Thank you.